So hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Massive welcome to this LinkedIn live session on navigating the job market in 2025. I'm thrilled to be your host as we step in to explore some critical topics today. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome and a thank you to our panels, Dana, Sam and Evelyn. Great to have you with us. The main objectives of today's session are number one, to take a closer look at some resume best practices. So this will also include a live demo session. We'll then be decoding the ATS, so the applicant tracking system, and some of the myths around it. We'll also give an insider view into some of the current hiring trends and insights. And then we're going to spend the last 30 minutes of the session going through your questions. So we're very interested to hear from you, dear, what's on your mind and what questions you have for us. There's a lot of great topics and information being covered in this session, and particularly for those who might be on the job hunt, but also for maybe for some folks who are considering a move rather in the future. I still see there are some people logging into the talk, so we're going to wait about another 30 seconds and then we'll get started. Thank you.
Great to see everyone.
Hi.
We're already at 250 almost. Maybe people can let us know just in the comments, like what's one of the main things that you're looking to take away from today's session?
Lots of familiar names in the comment section. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, good to have you on. We'll be getting started soon. And just someone's just had a quick question. Like, I'm in Australia, it's 1 a.m. This session will be recorded and exist as a LinkedIn post, so you can go to sleep if you like.
Really admire that person's commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So thank you for your patience. We're going to get started now with some introductions. So I'll kick things off. So my name is Tomas Kelly. I'm a talent leader with over 13 years of experience across mostly tech and manufacturing. I have a passion for hiring the right talent, building high performance teams, and I'm a stern advocate for candidate experience. And next up, I will pass the baton over to Dana, if you want to go next, and feel free then to nominate the next person after that.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and for everyone taking time to be with us here. Dana Rollinger, I have experience both in agency, in-house, returning to work after a break, experience in poor candidate experience, experience in providing the best candidate experience, very much hands-on recruitment right now for a large healthcare organization. However, here I am somebody who has extensive recruitment expertise. So I'm here to answer all the questions you may have. Please don't hesitate to share those. We're here to answer them all. And least but definitely not last, I am here to promote kindness in professional environments. I really believe that we can all benefit from that. So that's very, very brief about me. Sam, do you want to go next?
Sure. Thank you for that. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. My name's Sam Struan. I have a background in recruitment, about 10 years in recruitment, as well as resume writing. One of my main focuses is helping individuals come up with the most factual and objective resume while also addressing myths about applicant tracking systems. Really pleased to be here, and I'm going to pass over to Evelyn.
Thank you very much. Same here. Really happy to be here, and thanks everyone who are joining us. So my name is Evelyn Palma. I'm the co-founder of Blackbird Talent Solutions. I have over 13 years of experience in recruitment. Over this time, always on the external side of recruitment. So I've been recruiting, I think, across most industries that exist, and I've been helping companies from early stage startups to Fortune 500. So I've also seen a very broad size of type of company from a recruitment standpoint. So hopefully I can bring some insights from all those years of recruiting for so many companies.
Great stuff. Well, thank you so much to the panel for your introductions. That's great. So we're now going to get started with our first topic, which is on resume best practices. I'm delighted to say this is going to be led by Sam. So without further ado, Sam, I'll hand things over to you.
Thank you. I'm excited about this. I'm just going to be sharing screen. Thomas, if you can add that to the stage, and just give me a verbal heads up that you can see my CV resume on the screen.
Yes, all good.
Wonderful. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for signing in. And in this section, what you can expect is I'm going to go through an example resume and give you some tips on what I'm seeing land the most results in this current market, and the kind of one of the most effective ways to approach the resume in a simple way. There's lots of different resume advice out there, but what I'm going to show you just now is just one that's simple and easy to follow along. And it's not the universal standard by any means, but it should be effective enough. So in front of me here is a simple resume format. It's just in Google Docs. You can actually get this free template online. And if you just go to my website, samstruan.com, but also there is a free 30-minute video on how to fill out this template in this resume. Okay, so there's a much more detailed guide available to you, all for free. I'm going to walk you through some of the most high impact things and most common standards. Okay, so top section here, the overall layout, right? Simple is single column format typically works best. I don't recommend 2-column formats with pictures, images, logos, graphs. Okay, single column format, contact section, location, even if it's for remote roles, I do recommend that you include your location, particularly for the US, simply because companies need to be registered in the state that they hire from. So omitting your location doesn't usually work for landing remote interviews. Obviously, contact information like email, phone number, and I generally recommend adding your LinkedIn URL so people can kind of verify who you are on paper is also who you say you are online. In terms of some optional extras, okay, you might add a GitHub or a portfolio link if you're in, say, tech or design. And then also, if you're looking to relocate, you might add something like able to relocate or able to relocate within 4 weeks or able to relocate independently. The current market, not many individuals or rather companies are offering relocation and costs. So if you can level the playing ground, I'd recommend adding that. If you are concerned about name discrimination or your visa status isn't clear and you want to clarify that, that can also be put in the top section here. So that's what I'd recommend there. Moving on to the summary section, I do generally recommend a summary section, and it's not necessarily about whether you have a summary section or don't. The most important thing is that the content is good. Time and time again, I'm seeing this type of content: results-driven, recruitment leader, career-long record, strong experience, okay? The reality is this type of summary is very generic, full of kind of buzzwords, but it doesn't actually give a good example of someone's experience. My recommendation in terms of an improvement is not to come up with a generic statement, but instead come up with something factual. I do this by including 3 things: years of experience, the roles or responsibilities that I've held, and then the types of organizations, always quantified by headcount and revenue. So if I were to do that for my own summary, right, I've removed the generic summary and I've included years of experience, roles, types of companies. I get 10 years across agency and in-house recruiting, leading internal talent teams across North America at startups and global tech firms with 60 to 2,000 employees and up to 1.1 billion in annual revenue. The goal here is to reflect facts. My paychecks have come from these types of organizations of this size. That gives you your objective value statement. My approach to the summary section next, okay, is I then lead with examples of specific experiences, key experiences, not keywords thrown in. Instead, I like to put key experiences that are relevant to the target role. So quick example is this is the only section that I tweak in the resume. There's lots of advice that says create a new resume for each application. I don't believe in that. It's highly time consuming, but also dilutes the integrity of the resume content when it's done correctly. Okay. So this section here, the summary section after that intro bullet, is the only section that I tweak. If the job is asking for leadership experience, I'm going to highlight leadership experience. If it's looking for technical recruitment experience, I do have that experience. It's further back in my resume, down in 2017. The summary section allows me to take something that is more relevant to the target role and highlight it up front and center. And again, these are specific measurable results. Okay, that's my approach to the summary section. The skills section here, one of the common mistakes that I see is people listing random professional skills or soft skills like collaboration, leadership, stakeholder engagement. These skills don't lead to listing and just randomly listing words doesn't lead to interviews. Instead, I recommend replacing the skills section if it's professional or soft skills. Instead, I'd recommend that you put technical skills. Technical skills are often searched for, but also highly relevant to certain roles, whether you're in tech or not, right? I've put applicant tracking systems that I've used. Okay, we're going through things quite quickly, but that's typically how I approach the top section here, and then I'll show you how you do the professional experience section. First and foremost, okay, one of the kind of bits of advice that I offer that not too many people do is I like to add a company summary. There's probably about over 400 people on this stream right now. I want to know if anyone's ever heard of the company called Babylon. And if I just list that in my resume, you've probably not heard of it before. So what I like to do is I like to give just like a 1 to 2 line company summary. And I say Babylon was a global B2C and B2B digital healthcare and AI startup, had 2,000 employees, 1.1 billion in revenue, 24 million beneficiaries across 15 countries. That quick bit of context positions me as a clear communicator. It gives a reader who's never heard of the company before some context to frame the rest of my experience. So that's what I'd recommend is just company, location, title, dates, 1 to 2 lines. If you work for a large Fortune 500, maybe you give 1 to 2 lines about the division that you work for. So big companies can benefit from just a small snapshot about the function or the division that you worked for. Okay, nearing the end of the kind of resume overview, okay? Obviously, I recommend, impactful metrics. Now, the section I've highlighted, I've seen this time and time again, and the 3 other recruiters, Thomas, Dana, and Evelyn, okay, you'll probably be able to recognize some of this, but about 60% of the people that I work with, I'm often seeing the same AI content. Okay, I'm seeing kind of like the same sentence structure. I'm seeing the same words come up. Okay, some of these are ensuring, seamless, data-driven insights. Okay, and then I'm seeing significantly a lot, and then I'm seeing ensuring, and then boosting. Someone's laughing. I'm guessing you've seen this before as well. These kind of things that I'm bolding. Okay, AI has these tells, and I would say these are some of the most common AI tells, is like very similar sentence structure, very high level, and overusing these words. Okay, so if you have done this with your resume, do a quick check that you're just not kind of overusing AI. Okay, so I don't recommend this type of content. And then instead, I'm going to delete all of that and leave you with my quick lesson. This is my actual resume content and bullet points. Okay. If you pause and look back at the video, you see you'll see a big difference in the content. I start with who I report to, just to give that immediate team size and structure. And then I apply a concept, what I call time, money, team, and scope. Okay. When I read my bullet points, I think, can I add in context about time? Okay. What about team size, money? How much did you make, save, or manage, or operate within? Okay. So I always ask these 4 questions when I'm working with clients, but my own resume. And that's how you can come up with impactful metrics that are also factual. So that's typically how I approach the resume in a very quick snapshot. Thomas, how am I doing for time? Do I have a quick 2 minutes to show an applicant tracking system?
Absolutely. Keep going. Yeah, that's fine.
I appreciate that. Okay, so many of you joined on, okay, because we talked about ATS. I'm going to give you a preview of a real applicant tracking system before handing off to my colleagues on the call here. In front of me here, okay, I'm sharing a Lever ATS. It's one of the top ATS in the tech field and my personal favorite, but it's a real applicant tracking system. It is a demo account, so there's no real contact information here, okay? But generally speaking, most applicant tracking systems operate similarly in that they will allow recruiters to see what roles they're looking and responsible for. And then they'll have a section where you can see applicants. Okay, if for example I wanted to look at the account executive pipeline, I can add the account executive pipeline. In this case, I'm going to look at the account manager, and this is what it looks like on the recruiter end. I see a list of applicants. Most applicant tracking systems will default to date of application, and then recruiters can manually decide if they want to kind of search or filter or order them differently. But for me, I've always ordered by date of application. On the applicant side, as a candidate, as a job seeker, you might see a page that says apply for this job. I'm going to show you what happens when you click apply on the recruiter end. Okay, so right now in the new applicant pool, we've got Stephen, Curry, and Henry. Okay, are in the list here. They're the most recent applicants. if I, as a job seeker, click apply for this job, okay, and I want to attach my resume, so I'll just do that. This is a PDF. It's analyzing the resume here. All that it's doing right now is just parsing the information. It's looking for my name, email, phone. What it's not doing is auto rejecting based on keywords. It's not auto filtering me out and throwing me in a pool and hiding me from recruiters. All it's doing is parsing for the contact information here. And then if there are questions, like knockout questions, I would recommend that you just, read the question and then insert answer. I'm not going to answer these, okay? But test example, okay? And then when I hit submit application, all that happens is Sam Struan is now in the applicant pool. No bots, no AI is auto-rejecting me, hiding candidates from the applicant pool. Yes, you might be able to filter date of application, most recent, or oldest applicant in terms of time. I mean, oldest applicant, not by age, right? But that's all that happens. And when I click that candidate profile, recruiters can see what other jobs what other jobs someone has applied to. It's got the contact information that it was trying to parse, okay? And then the screening questions, as well as the resume. So the resume, you will generally always get a preview. Okay, I typically recommend Word or PDF. It doesn't really matter. You'll see my resume is 2.5 pages. I'm never worried about the length because I know the content is good. But also recruiters will always be able to generally download the file that they get, okay? So this is typically what most people will see as a candidate profile, a preview of the resume and contact information. And that's generally how most applicant tracking systems work. And on that note, I'm going to pass over to Tomas, Evelyn, and Dana to discuss applicant tracking systems and their experiences, given that they're actively recruiting and using these systems just now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Sam. And some really interesting insights there and takeaways. So appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us and advice. We're now going to move into our next topic, which is on decoding the ATS. And to get things going, I'm actually going to start off with some myths for our panel. But before we do that, maybe for anybody that's not familiar with an ATS or has not heard of one before, if I could ask somebody on the panel to explain briefly, what is an ATS and why does it matter? What does it do for recruiters?
Happy to take this one, Thomas. So there is plenty of ATSs, and ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System, and this is exactly what it does. And I loved the example that Sam shared with us. It tracks applications. So regardless of the layout, regardless of the big brand name or not, they all serve the same idea. They are there to help us structure the work for the applicants to come through, for the posted jobs, for us to be able to track who is still pending, who has received a notification for not suitability, who is in which stage of the process, to find all the information that we need in one place. I think generally from everything that I've heard, it is this mythical creature that has superpowers. I will quote my dear friend Amy Miller at Amazon, and she calls it a digital filing cabinet. Okay, and this is exactly what it is. It's a digital filing cabinet that helps us to process the applications. Think of it as an Excel spreadsheet, for the lack of a better comparison, And Sam, what we saw on the example that you shared was the moment you applied, your name came on top of the list. Okay. And I want to address that because typically, Thomas, maybe this is one of the myths you've pre-identified is you need to apply immediately the moment the job goes live because you want to be one of the first ones because this is going to make you at the top of the list. In fact, if a job is posted for a week and you apply at the end of the Friday when it expires, in fact, you may land on top of the pile because it depends. And before this live, we all kind of compared how do we go about it. I go from the top of the list. Somebody else goes from the bottom of the list, right? Somebody else is going to sort alphabetically and somebody else is going to sort by I don't know what else. I mean, there's plenty of choice, right? On an Excel spreadsheet, if you pull in all kinds of ways to break down the candidate, you can sort the list by many things. So this is to give you a very brief idea of what ATS is and what it does.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, I think it's really a good point, Dana, because I also hear it a lot that you have to apply, and if you don't apply early enough, if you're not on the first 50 applications, you're not going to be seen. And by default, the majority, and I've sometimes when I recruit, I go into the client's ATS. I've seen multiple because of that as well, besides the one we're using. And many times the default might be that most of them have the default, in fact, that the latest application comes first. So you will have to manually change it to have the earliest application pop differently, or if you want to have it by question. So the default is that. So the myth of you have to apply among the first 50 is not always true, because the order might be that you actually benefit from applying later, in fact. So.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing your thoughts. And Donna, you actually did crack one of my myths. So thank you for doing that. Very proactive. So maybe I'll move on to the next myth. So I see a lot of coverage online about having the right keywords in your resume. So a lot of advice is get as many of those keywords, pack it into your resume as much as is possible. But the crux is, if you don't have enough keywords, something I always hear is it won't pass the ATS test. So the ATS will reject me. Yeah. Who would like to take this one on and give some context there?
Yeah, I can take on that one, and I think it's a great one. I hear it all the time, and many times the ones saying this myth offer them the service to do the ATS friendly CV, right? And I think to Sam's point when he was showing that, I mean, if you have a bunch of keywords with no context, they don't say anything, right? It's still majority of the time human recruiters that will still go through your CV, and what we want to see is really kind of the storyline behind, right? What is behind these numbers? What is behind the achievements? What is behind the profile? So just putting a bunch of keywords there. And I have to say, I personally got the advice once from Raf when I was also in the job market, to basically put the job description in white and in tiny letters, because that would pass the ATS, right? I mean, this was coming from the Raf, right? So, which I know it's not true, right? You cannot put the job description and then you will have 100% match. What you have in some systems is the scoring, right? And you can score based on different topics, industry, types of titles, experiences that you come from a certain function. With that, you can use scoring, right? So you can score candidates and put them into kind of an A, B, C, D pool, but it's still humans going through those. So just putting in a bunch of keywords into a CV will not get you the interview. It's more about the context and making the CV clear enough for a human recruiter to see the value add that you bring. And that's why I think many of the topics that Sam brought up, and quantifying things, putting achievements, what makes you stand out, right? I think this is really key, and what I also always recommend my candidates when they're doing their CVs to really focus on the content and making sense, and not just a bunch of keywords or AI sentences that make no sense.
Donna, any comments from you on this one as well?
No, I think Evelyn put it very well. I fully agree with everything that has been said. I want to add, I saw in the comment section something came up asking, does all of this advice apply across the regions? And absolutely yes. So my hiring scope has been and continues to be a global scope. So I fill roles across the world. So there is no distinguishing. We don't want keywords in one country and no keywords in the other country. There was also a question about, do I put my location? Do I put my permit for work? Yes, absolutely. If you think that this is a requirement for the role, absolutely do put anywhere in the world. Somebody said, oh, but in Switzerland, they ask us for photos and the hobbies on the CV. If this is what you believe, absolutely do that. If you apply for an international or global organization, please rest assured, regardless of the role being located in Switzerland or elsewhere, this will not be a requirement. Having said this, there will be recruiters in US, in India, in Poland, you name it, who will hire across the globe too. So I think these days, when we are so spread out across the globe, you don't know who will be reading your CV. And Sam, on your CV, I noticed there is no country code for your phone number, which is always a pain for me, because sure, I know you're in Scotland. So I need to go and Google what is the country code for Scotland to call Sam. So, you know, that's something that you may want to add.
Excellent tip. Yeah, I use the movie phone number, which is 555, because that doesn't exist. Like, so no one can call me randomly. But that's a really good tip, is the country
It's
code.
a very good point. I think that country code is key. And to maybe, if I can add just a small one, also to make the CV in the language that is required. I mean, sometimes we receive CVs in whatever language that is not something that, unfortunately, we don't speak all of the languages that are out there. So to make the CV in English or German or French or whatever you are applying to, right, that it makes sense. If the ad is in English, most likely sending a CV in English is good enough.
The language of the job ad, always. Always, yes. The language of the job ad is the language you will be applying in.
Very good. Well, thank you for your insights and also for the real-time feedback for Sam, Dan. I appreciate that. So we've got a few minutes left before we go to questions. And I did want to also spend a few minutes just on looking at some of the trends and insights in the job market. I can see a lot of questions also relevant to this as well. So I'll start off maybe with a few questions for the panel. As we near the end of 2025, going into 2026, what are the biggest shifts that you're seeing across the job markets at the moment?
Biggest shifts in what sense? You mean in terms of like skills asked, or I mean, do we see more AI being requested, for example, or what do you mean exactly with?
I think what would be useful to know is in terms of like the number of postings that you're seeing online, the amount of hiring that companies are doing, or maybe where they're doing it, or the key skills that they're looking for. Are there any big shifts that you see in the job markets?
I mean, if I can speak maybe for my own experience there, I mean, I've definitely seen that the market has been very tough. It's been very challenging for the last 2 years, so since 24 and more or less all of 25. What we're seeing, and I think it doesn't undergo anyone, is a lot of restructuring happening, right? A lot of companies laying off. Some of them are addressing that as an AI thing, but I honestly think many of the companies also did a lot of hiring, volume hiring some years, and now are seeing the consequences of that. So this is why you see so many mass layoffs, and I think we see it across all industries. I've seen it again in Europe and in the Swiss market really affecting. We have the geopolitical situations, war, all of that affecting, of course, the economy. We have a lot of uncertainty in the world at the moment, and this clearly affects the job market. So I think it's been extremely challenging. I think for candidates, it's been very tough. It's a very competitive market as well. I mean, you are competing with volume of applications because we have so many layoffs in the market. So from my perspective, what I've seen, it's been a quite difficult market, more restructuring than growth. I mean, you have growth in a few sectors and a few companies, right? But majority has been more restructuring, and contrary to what people say, I mean, I know LinkedIn had a stat that 190% increase of AI being mentioned on job posts, so 190%. I personally have not seen it as much though from my clients. I mean, yes, in finance, in some roles we have a little bit more AI requirements, but I was surprised that it was 190% that is coming up more AI in the skills that are required. So that might be an interesting fact to keep in mind.
Thank you, Evelyn. And maybe move on to the next question. So I read a quote recently which said 80% of positions are not advertised and they exist on the quote unquote ghost markets. So is this really true? And what's actually happening behind the scenes from a recruiter's perspective? And I'll open this up to whoever wants to take it.
Thomas. So ghost market was last Friday on Halloween. Okay, and that one is gone. So okay, jokes aside, it is a very, very serious myth that we're all battling, and I think we need a lot more time to battle this very serious, very deep-rooted misconception that apparently stems from a very misconstructed Forbes article about 15 years ago. So somebody came up with some fake stats on that article, and then since then it has taken off and on with a life on its own. And obviously now with the Gen AI, the more we write about it, the more people talk about it. It's becoming kind of the new fact. From what I have seen in my experience, what we're talking about here are the jobs that have not been openly published. Okay, and so those are the jobs that, let me give you some examples that I have seen. Those are the jobs that I have a new role in my team and I already know who I want for this job internally within the organization, or maybe there's somebody who I really thought very highly in my previous organization and I want to bring them with me. So I am not publishing this job. I am opening it in my organization and I am directly placing the candidate that I have pre-identified. Okay, this very much happens in organizations, small and large. Nobody has time to waste, and we don't want to waste also candidates' time. So let's just get it done and move forward. Okay, so this is a not posted job. This is a ghost job, as some people call it. I think it's a very misleading title. There's many other instances. Somebody goes, oh, I have a job. Let me ask Thomas, Evelyn, and Sam if they know some really amazing recruiter. I need somebody joining my team this week. I know there's a lot of great recruiters on the market. Let me ask them and just really get it out, right? I don't want to review 25,000 applications, so I'm just going to do it that way. Okay. So these are the jobs that we're talking about. And if I had to put my finger on stats, this is no more than 20% of the jobs at absolute maximum. Okay. And this is including all the really senior executive jobs that don't get posted and get only headhunted directly. This includes all the internal only jobs that are never opened for general public. This includes all the jobs that, for example, are created for internal promotion. Okay, somebody who's been a top performer, I want to give them a bigger job. I create it, I place them. So this is what we're talking about. I think it's deeply overestimated, over worried about. These are the jobs you don't want to be posted anyways, because there's already somebody ready for that job. So you don't want to be investing time and effort to apply for it.
Definitely. If I can add there, and because I'm a finance person, I like statistics and I like numbers. In the back, I am a finance person. But there was a study done by University of Zurich. This is 2018, so it's still not the freshest, but I think gives exactly, and it's funny that the number that you mentioned, because they did a study and they found that 80% are publicly advertised and 20% remain off the radar, exactly, yeah, including the roles that you were saying, Dana. So it's even backed by there is one more new study after the Forbes one from 15 years. And maybe to play a little bit of not the devil's advocate, but I speak to candidates daily, right? And I think the feeling that they have many times is that they apply for a job and then there's a surprise internal candidate. And then the thought is, why did you even go out and do a search if you had an internal candidate all along? How do you guys, being internal recruiters, maybe you can give your insights on that, because I think that's part of this ghost job, that the job is posted because of a legal requirement, but in fact they have an internal solution already. Why waste everyone's time? So how do you, maybe can you address that part of internal candidates appearing throughout the process?
I have an opinion, but Thomas, maybe you can share your expertise.
I'll also share my own thoughts on this. So I think you're right, Evelyn. First of all, there can be some legal criteria involved, whereby in some locations, some markets, we're actually legally obliged to advertise it. I think what can sometimes happen is a hiring manager may have somebody in mind internally, right? So maybe they're on a different team, or they've had discussions with the person. Maybe there's a possibility for growth and development for the individual, but they're not quite sure if it's actually going to be the right fit. And what they may want to do is actually to try and get a sense of the market, to actually see and to compare to what's available out there. This isn't always the case, but I have seen it in my experience. Sometimes they just want to get a good gauge on, okay, what kind of applicants are there? are they going to be more qualified, less qualified than maybe somebody else that I'm considering internally, for example? And that could be another reason why this happens.
That makes sense.
Absolutely, Thomas. So they call it, I want to benchmark my internal talent. And sometimes there is zero preference. They go like, I need the best candidate to get the job. I need the most capable, the strongest candidate to come through. Sometimes these interview processes are long and exhausting. However, from my experience, most teams take the assessment very, very, very serious. There's both personality assessments, there is competency-based interviews, all kinds of ways to assess the best candidate. And yes, sometimes it is the internal candidate, and sometimes it isn't. So that's just how life goes.
Yeah.
But if I can really, I know we are, approaching the time when we want to start picking up the questions from the audience. And there's one big thing that I want to add, Thomas, to your question about what is happening on the market. And Evelyn, you listed beautifully all the things that, that are happening in the world geopolitically, socially, economically. And from what I am seeing is, yes, there is the technological advancements that we also see. I think this is a small part. I saw the news titles, Amazon letting people go because they're replacing them with AI. I think this is the smallest part of what we're seeing. I think there's a lot more to it than just AI. But what is it all resulting in is it's resulting in a very, very strong risk aversiveness. And I saw a lot of questions about transferable skills and how do I, get a visa sponsored to another country. And all of these things I put in somewhat the same bucket, meaning a career pivot, a change of country, change of function, change of industry, change of, level. And my general advice, and I get questions on this a lot, how do I do it? How do I beat the market? And the truth is, and I know a lot of you guys will not like to hear this, the truth is this is probably the most risk averse market I've seen in my career to date. And I see all of you nodding. It is the sad truth. So it's not only the company policies, it's not only the very limited budgets, it's everybody's under pressure, including the four of us, unfortunately, right? We are seeing the highest application volumes. We are seeing, the most incredible timelines that we need to deliver on. So what's happening is the risk aversiveness has gone through the roof. Nobody wants to, give an opportunity to talent who may have potential, right? Nobody wants to invest in somebody, in their visa, in their relocation, when they don't know, is this even going to pan out? Not to mention that they have already, a long list of people who are here ready to work. They may have been impacted in their previous role or not, or, there's a lot of talent available in everywhere in the world that we're looking at. People who have already industry experience, people who have already done the same job. Sometimes I see people who are like, I just need a chance. Give me an opportunity to step back, right? I'm happy to take 1 or 2 levels down of the job just to be able to return back to work. And it saddens me. I don't like it. But this is the reality that we're seeing across industries, across geographies. This is the job market in 2025. It sounds awfully depressive. Yet I want to say I am optimistic that this has to turn up. And I'll hand it back over to you to hear what are your thoughts on this. Sam, maybe also yours. What are you seeing? Is this, what are your thoughts? Is this going to get better?
Big question to ask. I can only hope that it's going to get better. What I can say is what I'm seeing land the most results in this current market, which, like you've all said, is very difficult, is doubling down on your strengths, right? Like, I've always wanted to be a marketing manager. Like, there's just always something interesting about marketing for me. The reality is it doesn't matter if I apply to 200 marketing manager jobs, use all the keywords, use whatever the common advice is. I've never held that title before. I'm not going to be considered for that. So, I always say to people, look, if revenue is important, right? If you're not working and you want to land interviews and get a salary, double down on your strengths. As much as people won't like to hear it, now is not the market to say, I'm going to try and pivot and try something new, right? Like, it is a bit of it is not only the job search is a competition, right? And in this current market is even more competitive. So double down on your strengths, target roles where you've held direct experience, whether it's role experience, industry experience, and then leverage that network. Networking isn't reaching out to strangers and asking for help, though, or just tapping people that you've maybe not worked with in 3 or 4 years and asking for favors, right? You got to give before you ask. So I always recommend, right, existing contact base. Try and see what you can do for them. Give them LinkedIn recommendations. Try and contribute to your industry and target titles that you've held before with a good resume, a good LinkedIn profile. And that's generally landing the most traction in this market. So that'd be my key advice.
A cherry on top is the visibility, Sam, right? If you do everything that you just listed and stay visible, both online and offline, this is going to be what really is going to make the difference.
I want to pick up, because I really like this point also on the networking. I want to just pick up on this because I've seen a few comments as well and questions. If somebody wants to pursue this and wants to start maybe doing some more networking, Sam, I really like your point there. It's no use just to send some messages out, like cold emails or whatever, trying to ask people to network. So what would your advice be in this case for people that maybe are looking to get better at this?
Is that question directed at me? Sorry, Thomas.
That was a little bit at you, Sam, but also for Dana and Evelyn, feel free to answer as well.
Yeah, so very briefly, my main bit of advice right now for people who are not landing interviews, revenue is important, is use ChatGPT or an AI tool to research similar companies to your most recent or your last 2 companies. So as an example, one of my most recent roles have been in healthcare, digital healthcare, health tech. Okay, so I would ask ChatGPT to list 20 to 40 similar companies or competitors to my last company. I would then get a list of target organizations that would most likely value my experience, right? You're a digital healthcare organization, I have digital healthcare experience. I would then follow all of those companies on LinkedIn so that I can stay up to date with any job posts, right? Like, I want to start with following all the companies so I can understand what's going on in that industry. I would connect with hiring managers, recruiters, okay? The key thing that I would not do is I wouldn't just connect with a stranger and then pitch them in the DM, asking them to look at my resume, asking them for an interview, asking them for a favor. The goal is follow relevant companies, bring those individuals at those companies into your LinkedIn network. My approach is then I would start adding value weekly, daily, right? Posting articles about the industry, generating discussion so that, if I follow 20 to 40 companies, I add 3 people to each of from each of those organizations into my network, I get a 50%, acceptance rate. I'll have 60 people in my LinkedIn feed that might see my posts, see my comments, engage in industry discussion. I would also then use, for me, right, like, if you looked at my resume, I'm an unemployed recruiter in 2025. Like, I haven't had a full-time recruitment job since 2023, right? The reality is, if I look at myself as a candidate, I'm not an appealing candidate. But what can I do to face those perceptions of career gaps, time off, right? A competitive market. I'm going to do what no one else is doing. I'm going to start posting about my experiences. I'm going to add real value in a platform that allows me to have lots of visibility, Dana, like you mentioned. And if I bring those individuals into my LinkedIn network, they might see those examples. So that would be my strategy if I were looking in this current market.
If I can add maybe two things also there. I mean, former colleagues, I think is also, people move on, they move to different companies, they work with you before. I think it's a, good way to also get into a company from someone that worked with you in a previous company, if you have a standing relationship. And another thing that I've personally used, I mean, I've moved countries a lot and always started with Zero Network also in Switzerland, right? I went to the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, different Chamber of Commerce, work with meet different people, they work in different companies. So I think you have to also pick events that could fit you, right? For me, the Chamber of Commerce was always a good, easy way to connect with other Swedes, for example, abroad. And then you could also have specific for finance, for supply chain, for HR, and join communities that are kind of in that field. And then, go on in-person events, ideally as well, and get to know people. I mean, in the end, and again, I really love the give before you ask approach.
Yeah, 100%.
Two more things to add to this. All absolutely spot on advice, but two more things to add on to that. Evelyn, your point about finding your community, the settings where you could find like-minded individuals. Also volunteering opportunities. So I'm, for example, part of Healthcare Businesswomen's Association. My role in healthcare is maybe not exactly what this association has had in mind when they created it. Yet I work for healthcare, and there's a lot of talented people. So I'm there to see who are the brightest minds, who is the talent that I may want to engage with. And also, if I was to look for a job, those leaders there would be the best contact for me to use. But I don't do it now. I'm not looking for a job right now, yet I am investing my time and effort because I know that in a long term, I mean, who knows? None of us are safe, except from you, Sam. I think your job is pretty safe. But those of us employed in organizations, we don't know, right? So this is something that I want all of us to think 3 steps ahead. And then last, I just wanted to share you the most recent example, and I think this really encompasses everything that we just said. I received a message on my private phone a couple of days ago from somebody I don't know, saying, hey, we are both alumni of the same university, and I got your phone from somebody who knows you from the university days. I graduated 5 years before you. However, I saw this amazing job at the company where you work, and I was wondering if there was anything that you could support me or give any insights as I'm preparing my application. This person also mentioned that they've worked formally as a contractor together with this organization. So I gave a couple of tips. I was super responsive, and I advised that they should reach out to the people if there's still somebody in that team that they worked with to get a referral. So we built together a very strong application. I mean, obviously, there's still no outcome, and I don't know where this is going to land. But to give you an idea how somebody who saw a job post, found a connection of a connection, found a contact with a former alumni working at the same company, right? I mean, this is creativity. This is using your network. This is finding common points with people, and kind of highlighting them, yet, remaining grateful and appreciative of any kind of advice and response they get. So, that I think is something that we all should think of, how to not only build this network by giving and supporting others, but also, when the time comes, utilizing it.
And maintaining it. So don't let the network go when you find a job. I mean, really maintaining that network that you build is also very important, because I see that mistake happens over and over. And then you stand there, oh, wait, I'm looking for a job. Where's my network, right? So don't forget about that part when you do find a job, if you're searching, right? And if you are in a job, don't underestimate the networking. Like Dana say, be a few steps ahead. And think that one day that could change, and then your network, could play a big role in landing the next job. So very important to keep it up as well.
Yeah, this is one of the points I was going to raise as well, Dana, on crossover and relevance. So when I'm looking to maybe network with somebody new, or I'm finding somebody on my network, I'm usually trying to see, what do I have in common with them? It could be a contact, it could be the university we went to, it could be previous companies. It's a great conversation starter. It's a great way to reach out and say, hey, I see we are both going to the same university, or I know this person, I believe you do as well. It's a lovely way to kind of break the ice, so to speak. The other thing I was going to just say as well is, especially for anyone that's starting to do this, you have to put yourself out there. You have to, there will be a little bit of silence. There's going to be times where it doesn't work. I've been ghosted many times when I've tried to reach out. I can assure you it'll happen to everyone. But don't worry about that. Put yourself out there, stay focused, keep going, and you will get through there. And I really like Eveline's point also, maintain it. It shouldn't just be something that you do when you need a job. It should be something you do when you have a job. I also know for myself, there's a huge amount of community in Zurich and also Zug. So to give you a good example, I'm part of the Zug Pharma group, where we meet once a month, and it's a lovely way to network. People that go to these events, they know what kind of an environment it is, that people will be introducing themselves, that people are okay with going up and starting conversations.
Very informal, yeah.
It's very, very informal. So my advice would be, this exists not just in Switzerland, but across the markets. So go out there and look and see what's available in your location as well. It will surprise you. So we've got 9 minutes left. There's been a ton of questions coming through. Sam, I know you said you were keeping an eye on some of the questions before we started. Was there anything you've seen kind of coming up? Because there's quite a lot to go through there. Any common questions you've seen coming up that maybe we could put to the panel?
Yeah, I think the most common theme that I'm seeing in the questions is individuals struggling to maybe land interviews and kind of what steps to take to generate that traction. I'm not seeing anything about like I'm getting interviews, but I'm not passing them, right? And maybe people in the comments, right? Just to let everyone know, we're going to spend a little bit of time going through some of the comments and questions that have been left. So if we don't answer them now or on this call, right, we're going to try and get through to them. So if please feel free to leave a question. And also right now, if anyone's kind of like online just now, like by all means, like re-comment your questions because it's going to come up for us to see. But I would say like, there's a little bit of kind of some people like, I have lots of experience, like, but I'm not getting it. Like, what can I do? What's different, right? Or is there any point in this current market? I want to say that, look, I'm still working with people who are landing interviews, right? So yes, it's a tough market, but there is still movement in this market, okay? Yes. When you see a job posted, if you don't get that job, okay, someone else might have vacated a job in order to go to that job. So there is movement in the market, and I can only hope that it's going to get better somehow, but definitely in this time, what I would say is like what worked in 2019, not enough in this current market. If you feel that, I used to just apply to jobs and there are no remote jobs. Like if you don't have a 100% core need to work remotely, okay, like remote jobs are now, I think the last I checked, generally under 10% of the total job market, okay, are hovering around that number. I understand that there are legitimate reasons to needing remote work, disabilities, being a caregiver, okay? But if you have flexibility on that, that is one of the biggest things that are moving the needle, is if you can go on site and hybrid. Otherwise, start your own business, right? Like the reality is employers have the leverage and have the salaries and that they're offering, right? They have the thing on offer, right? And if you won't work on site, there's probably 9 other people that will. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that is landing traction, is kind of opening up that job search, fixing your resume, your LinkedIn profile. And one thing I would just end on about LinkedIn and generally networking as a whole is you have to view it like a bank, right? You have to make deposits before you can make a withdrawal. So networking, yes, is about, seeing where you can look at your previous contacts and leverage, right? And you want to get referral. But keep in mind, like the other part of the equation of networking is like how you can help others, how you can contribute. So just keep in mind, like LinkedIn's a bank. You have to make deposits before you can make a withdrawal.
Yeah, if I can add to that also, I always say, looking for a job is a multi-channel approach. You have to do many things to land the interview, to land the job. So having a good, clear structure CVs, one thing, right? You need to have the net to your former colleagues, go to external recruiters, try to connect with internal recruiters. I mean, you have to really have a multiple channel approach. It's not just one approach that works. Just applying on LinkedIn might not be the way, right? Only applying on another way might not be either. So you need to really diversify. And I think what you were saying before, Sam, having a strategy also and thinking of what type of roles am I applying to? Do they make sense? I mean, I can speak for Switzerland. It's a very traditional recruitment market. Titles and industry play a huge role. And linked to what you were saying, Dana, before, right? I mean, in the end, in the current market, it is highly competitive. So be strategic and be smart to apply for jobs that make sense. Start with similar, relatable industries. Go to areas where you have expertise. You can always then go to the marketing dream job, Sam, within a company, right? You can always move internally later. But right now in the market, to land the interviews, you have to be strategic. You have to be smart. And you have to be a bit strategic about where to go and where to apply as well.
Exactly. I'm not going to get butthurt if I get rejected from 200 marketing manager jobs, right? I've never held that title before. I'm not going to take those rejections. And I think, you know, that's as much as I definitely want to support everyone. Like, there are some realities in the market that none of us can control. If you don't have experience in the job that you're applying for, it's not a rejection, right? You wouldn't have been seriously considered for that role in the first place, right? So try not to take that weight of 200 applications, right? Obviously, it hurts when you have direct experience in the role, right? But like you said, Evelyn, there's some tradition, like many of the markets right now, Dana, you mentioned earlier, are really risk averse, right? Why would a company hire someone that's never held their title before if they have 5 or 10 or 20 plus people that have industry experience, role experience? It's just the market just now.
And I of course will add that it's not enough just to have the experience, sadly, right? There's so much more into selecting the right talent. And I will go as far as to say what is the perfect candidate for one company is totally not suited for others, right? I mean, it sounds a bit obvious, right? Because if we look for a life partner, we have very different what I'm looking for versus what Evelyn is looking for, right? We have different ideas, we have different strategies, we have different plans for the future. You know, maybe somebody's hiring the backfill for the leader eventually. So they're looking, yes, it's a marketing manager job, and in effect, they're looking for somebody who's ready to step up in a year when the team lead is going to be retiring, right? So they are looking for somebody with a lot more hands-on experience than what is listed in the job requirements. There's so many things, you know, that sometimes we cannot put in the job description. You know, somebody may say, well, hey, you know, I know that these days we don't talk about diversity and we don't talk about all of these things, but somebody can say, hey, you know, I've got a team of somehow it felt that we have 7 females in the team, and I would love to have, you know, more creative, more diverse, or somebody who's had only pharma experience, and I would love to have somebody who comes from a biotech or medtech, somebody who has an alternative point of view. So there's things that they will not be in the job description, but people will be looking. So when you receive a rejection, and I've heard this a lot. I also read somebody put it in the comments. I meet all the requirements, and yet I didn't even get an interview. Okay. And there could be so many reasons. You know, I could have an arm length of reasons. Maybe the job got canceled. Maybe they decided to hire in a different country. Maybe they, you know, decided to re-level it. And maybe, you know, there could be 100 maybes. So when you receive a no, don't take it personal. It doesn't mean that the company is not the right fit. It doesn't mean that the job is not the right, or you're not qualified for the job. It simply means it's no for now. You know, I think the job search these days requires the most resilience one has ever needed. So the fact that all of you are here and listen till the very end of this very long hour just says that you have the resilience, you have the eagerness to find solutions and learn and get better at this game, and you will succeed eventually.
Yeah, Dana, can I mention one other quick point as well? I know we're just about to finish up, but really like the collection of views that we have here. One of the points I just have is that if you're applying for a lot of positions and it's not working out, it can also be good to just reflect, like to actually take some time to look at, okay, what applications am I sending in, what's working and what's not working. You could be surprised. There could be things that you're doing over and over again that just aren't working, and maybe it's time to change it up. I'm not saying that this is the case for everyone, but definitely it's helpful at some point. If you're really not getting it, if there's nothing that's working, it's useful in those cases. So we're just on time. So we're at the top of the hour, 4 o'clock for those of us in Central Europe. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone for joining us, and particularly to the panel. So Sam, Dana, and Evelyn, really, really appreciate your time. Sam, to your point, I know there's been a lot of comments coming through. To everyone that's joined, we're going to do the best that we can to respond to these comments. Please give us some time. There's been I've lost count, probably hundreds at this stage. So we'll try as best as we can to get back to you. But just want to say a massive thank you, and appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.